Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District for Wednesday, November 15th at 5 p.m. And could I ask Director Martin to lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Director Evans?
I'm here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Director Martin?
Present.
Director Smith?
Here.
Director Alvarez?
Here. Okay, next is the adoption of the agenda for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Public comment. Persons wishing to address a matter not on the agenda will be heard at this time. However, no action will be taken until the matter is placed on a future agenda in accordance with board policy. I don't have any speaker slips for public comment at this time, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or member of the public requested a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it will be considered separately under action items. Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Okay, on to action item 2.1, notice of preparation for a draft program environmental impact report for the 2017 water, wastewater, and recyclable water master plan.
Yeah, Rob Scholl will be giving that report. So Rob.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prum. Good evening, President Elithart, members of the board. Just got a real short presentation for you here. This is on our 2017 master plan program EIR notice of preparation. Okay. All right, so just to kind of give you an idea of where we stand here in the master planning process, we're reaching the end here. We've gone through the modeling, we've got the duty factors here, design criteria established, and now we're at the process here of actually drafting the master plan, and getting ready to get the program EIR underway as well. And so when I kind of break down what's in the program EIR process, everything that you see here on the left here, these are the different steps that are involved in the program EIR, starting from why we're here today, the notice of preparation, and going all the way through till we do our public comment period here with the draft EIR, and eventually the district board certifying the document. And what you see on the right-hand part of the slide here in the blue boxes, these are the different points of time here when we take into account public or agency comments to the plan here. So you see we're just getting started here. We're right at the beginning of it. And just to give you a little bit more background here on the purpose of the program EIR, basically what we're doing is we're looking at our proposed capital improvement program here for the master plan, and we're looking at it from a programmatic or about a 30,000 foot level. We're taking a look at the projects, we're taking a look at what could be some of the potential impacts of these projects. We're going to look at ways to potentially avoid or mitigate such impacts, and we're also going to take a look at alternatives for them. This is going to be providing the basis for subsequent reports there on individual projects later on. In other words, we're kind of looking at all the different projects at this level, but as we get into project-specific environmental evaluation, it's kind of providing the basis for it, which will be done for each project at a later time. And this slide here is just showing the different areas of potential impact that we're going to look at. Everything from air quality all the way down through public safety and traffic circulation. So once again, we're at 30,000 foot level. We're also going to take a look at the cumulative effects of all the projects. So we'll look at projects individually, we'll look at the projects together, and we'll see if all the projects together, that potentially could have environmental impacts. So kind of getting back to why we're here today. So we're looking at the very start here, notice of preparation. So what this does here is this begins a 30-day process where we'll basically accept public comment, or actually public inputs, I should say, on what does the public want to see in our program EIR. What are their concerns? What do they want us to include in it? So they might say, well, I want you to take a look at different reservoir sites. I want you to take a look at different pipelines, or they might have different environmental things that they want us to take a look at. This is the time for them to do it. So we'll basically, the notice of preparation is going to be, it's very short, it's 3 pages. It's basically going to describe the master plan, describe the capital improvement program, and then basically ask for comments, ask for their concerns. We're also going to have a scoping meeting that we're going to hold during the middle of this 30-day review process, and that'll be held on December 7th at 5 o'clock, probably right here in this boardroom. During this process, we're not going to stop work. We're not going to freeze work here on the program EIR. We're going to continue to work through our technical reports here to keep this process going. And kind of talking about the schedule, we'll probably have a notice of preparation. We plan to have the public review conclude next month. We are proposing here a board workshop here. Now that the master plan is, we're starting to get a draft together. So that's probably going to happen around January-ish. And then what we would like to do is commence our actual program EIR public review period in February. Maybe get that done in March or April. Have a master plan finalized there around that time as well, so that we can bring both of them before the board in May 2018 for adoption. And of course, we can hold additional public meetings as needed or at the board's discretion. And that pretty much concludes my presentation here. I'd love to answer questions the board has.
Okay, any questions? All right, I've got 2 requests to speak on this item. The first is for Mike Hunsaker.
Mike Hunsaker, 115 Equestrian Court, San Marcos. This has been a long road, but it has been a long delayed road. Since you passed the Urban Master Water Plan 2015, we're looking at almost 3 years to get to a master water plan. And the urban plan was based on projection gross, which does not match up with a lot of your other documentation. Some of your projections, for example, are as low as 200, less than 200 units per year for 2017 and 2018. That's not true. Also, you say you're going to have public comment, but you said that you would do for important meetings, plan for public interest at 6 o'clock. Why is it still at 5? Is it that important to have public information? You have a 2008 master plan, and here we are with a 2017 master plan. That's about 9 years. You're pushing the 10-year limit. I think the master water plan should have been much closer to the urban water plan. And I want to make sure that the master water plan draft is available before these public meetings. There should be a draft there now. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, staff, you want to respond to any of that?
I don't know, maybe I'll ask Rob or James to come up if you can address the comments.
May I say-
Sure, go ahead. Director Evans.
Before you address those questions, is it possible for us to make the public scoping meeting at 6 PM instead of 5 PM?
Sure, that's something we could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Mhm. So I'll try to field some of these here, and if I miss some, please let me know. Okay, so the 9 years here, the 2008 master plan versus the 2017 master plan. Now, just remember here, the 2008 master plan, the date on that was just based on the data. That was the cutoff date that we used. So everything as of June 30th, 2008 was what we utilized for it, even though the master plan itself wasn't adopted until 2011. We actually used a date cutoff of 2014 for the current master plan here. We're just calling it here a 27 master plan because we're at 2017, and perhaps we end up calling this the 2018 master plan when we actually adopt it. Not necessarily the date here, what the data is based on.
So between adopted plans, probably 2011 to 2018.
We're probably closer to, let's call it 6 or 7 years in between master plans. And we do like to keep master plans in between the 5 to 10-year window. That's kind of our range. About trying to tie the master plan into the urban water management plan, you're gonna find here, I'm gonna purposely not do that. The two are completely separate documents, and I don't want their timing tied together at all on this. And did I miss any comments?
Could
Go
I
ahead.
just clarify, you said that this plan's actual data collection cutoff date was 2014?
Correct, June 30th, 2014.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's just a 3-year gap.
So it's a 6-year difference there between the previous master plan and this master plan as
Right,
far as the
but
data is
data
concerned.
is, yeah, okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just one thing to add, Directors, the urban water management plan is called a 2015 urban water management plan, but the adoption of the urban water management plan happened halfway through the year 2016, close to June 2016. So similar to a master plan from the 2008 master plan, the 2015 urban water management plan used calendar year 2015 data, which you can't get until 2016 because you don't know that data until the end of 2015, and then it takes 6 months to put that document together, or more actually, because you have to wait for metropolitan and county water authority to do their plans for you to do, for us as a retail agency to do ours. So the date between the adoption of the urban water management plan and our schedule of the master plan, if there were a tie-in, is actually not that great.
Director
Mr.
Murphy.
Chairman, of all of our staff, do we see moving forward being a problem or contestable at this point?
Well, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that common amongst other water agencies, or are we unique
Which,
with that gap?
between, gap
way-
between what and what?
The way that we collect the data, and then from the time we prepare the reports and the time that we adopt it. Is that how it's done in the industry?
Oh,
amongst
absolutely
all
there.
the agencies, or are we doing something different?
No. You have a time there where you have to cut off basically accepting data here. And then it takes time to process the data and then go through the planning process here. So, I mean, if you continuously accept new data, you're gonna be constantly revising your report, and then you're never gonna get it done. So yeah, absolutely there, you can expect to see a gap.
So this is the norm.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, I've got thanks, Rob. Got one other request to speak from Andrew Yancey.
Thank you, and good evening, directors, staff, council. My name is Andrew Yancey. I'm an attorney with Latham & Watkins. I represent the Golden Door, which is a customer here in Vallecitos District 1. We certainly appreciate the work being done with the master plan. We're happy to see it moving forward. We will be providing more substantive comments during the NOP process, but wanted to come here tonight to let you know some of the concerns that we'll be looking for, and also just a couple of things about the notice of preparation that's going out that I guess is what you're voting on here today. So first, I noticed in the staff report that the notice of preparation indicates that the environmental review document is going to be a supplemental environmental review. We have some concerns about that. Supplements are often used for minor plans, minor changes to existing programs. And I understand that this master plan is an update from the 2008 master plan. At the time the 2008 master plan was passed, and you just heard the discussion about the data cutoffs, the county's general plan, which gave land use inputs, was the 1979 county general plan. Since then, the county has a new general plan that it passed in 2011, and so those new land uses are going to change a lot of the inputs in the way you're looking at your water demand, and have some concerns that those impacts are going to be more pervasive than a supplemental environmental document warrants. In addition, saw that it's going to be a 30-day proposed comment period on the notice of preparation. We would like to request an extension into next year, preferably 60 days. I mean, as you know, the holidays are coming up, so a chunk of those 30 days are taken up by the Thanksgiving holidays, people preparing for the various December holidays they have. In addition, this is the only water district that we've been able to identify that has projected in its urban water management plan to have a perpetual supply deficit into the future. I think that a lot of people are going to have concerns about that and want to discuss how they'd like the master plan to look at these type of issues. So I would hope that more time would be provided so that the public may weigh in like that. And also just to let you know about some of the substantive things we're hoping to see in the master plan, which I understand has been underway. It seems to me that the order has gotten a little reversed here. Usually, as I understand it, the master plan comes out and that establishes the water duty factors, which are then used to determine the urban water management plan's supply and demand factors. Here, the district passed a urban water management plan in June of 2016. In September of 2016, the district then passed its water duty factors that we were told were the same water duty factors relied on for the urban water management plan. But now you're here a couple of years, it's going to be a couple of years later by the time this is passed, passing the master plan. Since then, the Newland Water Supply Assessment was approved, which included something new called a conservation required factor, which made up the difference between the water supply and the water demand, and the deficit is projected out to 2035. So we're really looking forward to seeing how all these things are reconciled in this master plan with these different pieces of data and the way that the water duty factors are used in all of the district's analysis on plan level and project specific basis. So that's something we're really looking forward to seeing, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. General Manager, would you like staff to respond?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything that you want to respond to, but it would be helpful for the board at the end of the comments about the period of time. Is it 30 days or 60 days? So keep that in mind. Rob?
Yeah, so just talking about that, a 30-day review period. This is just for the notice of preparation here. There's not an actual environmental document out there for them to research there. If I can understand it there if, we were doing the water fix project there, which is thousands of pages here, and it takes a long time to go through it. We're just simply asking for public input on what needs to go into an environmental document here. That's why I'm recommending a 30-day public review period, not a 60-day public review period. Concern here on this being a supplemental. The reason why we're doing a supplemental program EIR instead of a full program EIR is while there's some slight changes in some of the land use, and there's some slight differences in some of the duty factors, and there's some slight differences in the capital improvement program, all of these differences are very, very minor here. So what we're just basically doing is updating it. We can take a lot of the previous information from the 2008 Master Plans Program EIR and utilize it, so that's what we're doing here. As far as a supply deficit here, that's, once again, this district doesn't have a supply deficit, and that's a issue there for the urban water management plan, which we've kind of hashed out a few times now. In regards there to the duty factor concerns there and how they may or may not apply to Newland Sierra, just wanted to point out here to the board that as of June 30th, 2014, which is the cutoff date for this master plan here, the Newland Sierra project is still not an approved land use and will not be included in this master plan. Thank you.
During the workshop, would you make a note to identify to us, board, what these discrepancies are, minor as they may be, so that we can also understand how minor they are and better enable us to do our job?
Yeah, certainly. I can kind of overview some of those right now here. Like we made some slight differences here in the duty factors there for certain land uses. We raised or lowered some. As far as shoot, just drew a blank here.
James?
Hmm?
Correct me if I'm wrong, one of the big differences is, you know, when you're putting a master plan together, it's really putting the capital improvement project together. The capital improvement projects that were identified in the previous master plan and this master plan are very similar. The biggest difference is the timing. So before, with all the growth pre-recession, it was all gonna happen sooner. Now it's gonna happen later, but as far as the projects, they're the same. It's just instead of happening before 2020, now they're gonna happen 2025 to 2030 or beyond. I believe that's one of the most significant differences, but from a master plan and an environmental document, whether you're building a pipeline in the street tomorrow or 10 years from now, those impacts are the same, which is one of the reasons why a supplemental environmental impact report made sense instead. So those land use differences made the difference, but the big difference with the growth in the sand dike projections was we're not seeing that rapid growth. We're seeing growth, and we have very much a growth agency, but we're not seeing that rapid growth today in which we're gonna have a population boom in this area within the next 10 years. We're gonna see it, but it's gonna happen over a longer period of time. Same projects happening over a longer period of time, but from an environmental standpoint, it's the same project.
And just to add to what James said, if there's a particular project in the master plan that is built that may have significant environmental impacts, that project would have to go through its own environmental report, own environmental studies down the road. So, and it could not rely simply on any approvals in the programmatic EIR. Most of our types of projects tend to be within roadways, previously disturbed areas, so the environmental impacts are small. But if they're one that went like overland through habitat, it would have its own set of environmental hurdles to clear.
Yeah. And sorry, what I was, thank you, James, there for mentioning about pushing projects back. That was definitely one of the things that we did. And then land use. There's been some slight tweaks here on the county side there. They did adopt the general plan update there for 2011. And then, of course, the city of San Marcos is also updated there and adopted some SPAs, like the University District is a good example. So that is going to be included in this next master plan.
I continue, our urban water management plan that we approved, it's been under attack, really consistency. Did we finally say they just misread it, or did we say that someone messed up on our part with some of the numbers? What's the final outcome on that, so that we can put this to rest?
No, the urban water management plan here that the board has adopted, that still stands here.
Okay, so we're not projecting a shortage?
No, we are not projecting
What
a
was our
shortage.
attorney just talking about?
Well, they have a viewpoint on that, okay?
Oh, they
They
read
have
it.
a viewpoint on it.
The way
We
they
don't
read it.
disagree with, or we disagree with it, rather, so
Okay.
that's all that is.
So it's in the way you read the report?
That's probably a fair way to say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Evans?
Just two comments. Jim was asking in the workshop if you would bring out the slight differences, and I'd appreciate it if that time you could also just reiterate partly what you were doing now, not just what the difference was, but how you took account of it and how it's in there, even with, though it's a supplemental and not full. So maybe not just tell me it's changed, but let me know how that changed and how it impacted or didn't impact what we're doing. And you gave a good example with it's the environment, not the time, but just make sure that's clear.
Sure.
And then on the second comment, and this is not the time to do it, but I do know the urban management plan and this are entirely different things, and I'm just wondering when's the appropriate time to maybe do a very distinct definition in the workshop somehow, so we all know why they really are not connected. We have this same issue going on at the Water Authority when they talk about their master plan versus the urban, and I think sometimes we forget in the process how they evolved, and this may not be the time to do it, but in the workshop.
Yeah, we can make that a component of the workshop.
I'd really like that, so we
Okay.
can all understand why they can often be at odds with each other, kind of not going for the same goal. I appreciate that, thank you.
Was a date mentioned that we were having this meeting?
Yes.
Did you say the 7th?
Yes, December
It's the
7th.
scoping meeting.
Oh, that's a scoping meeting, not the
That is
workshop.
not that is not a regular board meeting. It's a specific
Public
meeting.
scoping.
It's a public meeting, but it's not a board meeting.
And that's not the workshop.
No,
Correct.
Yeah,
The
But-
workshop will be in January.
yeah.
but the scoping meeting does fall within the 30-day period they're asking for an extension on, and you are suggesting they don't need that time because they're simply going to give us a list of what they want us to put in it? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing here is, it's not like we have a huge document presented for them to review here. We're just asking for their input, their concerns on what they would want to see in an environmental
And
document.
does that mean when we get to the draft PEIR supplement, it's going to have 45 days? We could extend that to 60 at that time? That's where they're really going to get into it?
I think that would be, yeah, a good time. If
They're
we
gonna
wanted to do an
extend it.
Asking
extension,
for extensions
that would be a good time
throughout
to do
this
it.
process.
Well, let me ask you another question about the scoping meeting, because I'm not used to whatever this is, but you're gonna be inundated from the attorneys, you have paperwork this thick, because they have nothing better to do than to charge their clients. Well, they'd like to see this, they'd like to see that, doesn't mean you have to do that. It means this is what you'd like to see.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're gonna do that, correct?
it means there that everything that they present here, we would certainly take into account here, under consideration there, as we're preparing our document. It does not necessarily mean it has to be incorporated into the document.
Thank you.
So what exactly is the scoping meeting? And what's the purpose of it?
Okay,
I
so-
understand you're trying to realize what's in scope, but what is the intention of us having a scoping meeting on the 7th?
So basically, the purpose of the scoping meeting is to say, we're going to prepare an environmental document for this master plan. We'll talk a little bit there about what the board has done so far there, like the duty factors, for instance, there. A little bit of the process there that I just gave an overview on, that the board has gone over. And then, as like Director Evans suggested here, we'll probably talk about a lot of the differences here, a lot of the updates from the 2008 master plan to this new master plan.
That is a little bit different than I thought. So, go ahead. Okay.
So at the scoping meeting, sometimes we get public participation, a lot of times we'll get city personnel or other agency personnel saying, Art, I want you to make sure you consider our new land use. It's already in there, but they're gonna make that comment. I want you to consider, artifacts or archaeological artifacts. Those are the type of things that they're going to comment on typically. We may have some developers say, is my land development included, is my development included? Answer could be yes, answer could be no. So they're basically coming to the meeting, whether they have an opportunity to show up in person, they have an opportunity to write a formal letter, and basically say, will you please, or we want you to consider this within your document. So they're scoping the document. Our portion is, as Rob Scholl mentioned, is kind of lay out what's going on and the timing. And then basically what we're expecting is the public and other agencies and NGOs to give us comments on what they would like to see addressed within our EIR.
So has this meeting been announced yet?
No, it has not yet been.
So we're really talking for that meeting, way less than 30 days, and you have a 4-day holiday right in the middle of that as well. Is that reasonable? I mean, it seems to me if we're going to have potentially other agencies, members of the public, obviously law firms, that are going to be coming and commenting on this, that I don't know if we're necessarily being reasonable with the timeline that we have here. And I think, just unless you have something that can convince me otherwise, I'm leaning towards maybe pushing that out a little bit.
We can certainly push this out at the board's discretion here. The reason why I'm recommending 30 instead of 60 is I don't know if the additional time is going to generate any additional questions here as far as the notice of preparation is concerned. That's my.
They're two different
position.
things. So the notice, so, and I also find it kind of interesting. This is the first time I've gone through this, so forgive me if I'm trying to talk through this, but it's interesting that they kind of overlap, right? You have 30 days for the notice of preparation, but then you start having meetings to get public input, 2.5, 3 weeks into that. It seems like it would be 30 days, then we have a meeting. We announced it for 30 days, give everybody a chance to know what's going on, to prepare their questions, to learn about what they might want to ask, or give some thought about what they might be concerned about, and then have this initial meeting. I know we're going to have a workshop as well, but if we're going to have cities and members of the public come, it just seems like we're not really giving them a lot of time to kind of prepare for that meeting.
Well, it's a statute, but the intent of the scoping meeting is to basically serve the same purpose as the 30-day period here, which is to just basically field concerns of the public there on what they might want to see in your program EIR.
No, I think I'm getting it, but it just seems, maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, but next week's basically not really a week, right? Because most folks are either going to work not at all, or they're going to work just 3 days. And then we're into December, and we're talking about a meeting on December 7th. So to me, it just seems like to have that kind of meeting, it seems like it's a kind of a quick turnaround.
Rob, I've got a question. What would be the impact to the project schedule if we went to 60 days or 45 days? Is there enough float in the schedule to absorb that, or would that push out the final adoption by that amount of time?
I think if we extend this to 60 days, I think the impact would be very minor to the project schedule there. Like I said, we would continue to do the technical studies here during the NOP process here.
So there's probably enough float to absorb that extra time?
Yeah, there might be very, very minor impact to the schedule, but not much.
Director Hernandez?
The comments, if I understand it, are going to address the items that you mentioned, air quality all the way through public safety.
Mhm.
There may be comments relative to specific items within each one of those that would be brought out at a scoping meeting or this comment period. Is that my understanding?
It could be there, yeah.
Would there be additional major elements that might be asked to be reviewed beyond these 5, 10, 11 items?
Oh, I mean, there certainly could be there. We might field comments here that don't have to do with the environmental effects at all, for instance, here. They might deal with, master plan things like placement of infrastructure, for instance. Yeah, so we could see all kinds of different comments here at this meeting.
Well, to address the timeline, it's a 3-page document. I got to believe everybody's got their comments already to submit anyway. But again, to try and give everybody an opportunity to eat their Thanksgiving dinner and then read the document, I don't mind moving it to 45 days. But 60 days, unless there's something very specific that's going to have to do a lot of research to bring to the meeting, I don't think we need 60 days to do that.
And I don't believe anybody with comments has to be incredibly specific. They have to come up with an issue and say, we would like you to look into this particular issue.
Yeah.
And then we would determine throughout the process what level of detail it needs to be looked at.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I agree, if it doesn't, is not detrimental to moving forward. I think extending the time is a worthy thing to do. I do understand this is for you as a staff to get a general idea of what people want. And then after we choose to do it or not do it in the actual document, that's in the next period when they can get really into details and we can have to address whatever comes up. So the intent, I guess, does every time there's a 30-day period, do scoping meetings occur? Is that a general practice?
For an EIR, yes.
Okay, so what the point is, you give them 15 days to look at it, they come to a meeting if they want to, and then they have another 15 days to add further to it, right, in that original 30 days, is that correct? So, well, based on that, I think the 45 is reasonable. I would like to actually make a motion that we approve initiation of a 45-day public review period for the notice of preparation as per the recommendation in the, do you want me to read the whole thing?
Second with discussion.
Sure. Director Martin.
My discussion is, I don't mind if we wait 45 days, 30 days, 60 days. However, the attorney that spoke, his whole idea is to slow this process down. That's their job, and they're gonna be doing this every step of the way. So realize it now, give them the 15 days, but in the future, they're gonna hit this every single time.
Absolutely.
So just be aware of that.
And, Mr. Chairman, and the notice of preparation is geared towards notifying responsible agencies, okay? The city, other agencies. That's what the purpose of the notice of preparation is. And all it is simply saying, hey, guys, we're getting ready to do a supplemental EIR on our master plan. Is there anything you as a public agency, city, county, school district, whatever, is there something in here we need to do? It's not for basically geared towards the general public. It's just part of the CEQA process. So all we're doing is just following what statutorily has been laid out. And you're gonna get confusion by people are gonna come in here and Mr. Yancey's here today, and as Director Martin points out, this is what we're gonna hear. So I think staff's put together a good recommendation. It's up to you whether it's 15 days or 30 days. But all I'm saying is that I want you to understand, and this is for you, Mike, is that this is not for the public per se, as it is for responsible agencies to be able to get the process going so that the city, if there's something over there they want to see, and they get this all the time, and we get this from them.
Just to clarify, are you
Yeah.
talking about the notice, or are you talking about the scoping meeting is not for
The
public?
scoping meeting and the notice.
So why are we changing the board meeting time?
We're not.
We're not.
That wasn't voted on, that was someone's comment.
It's not a board meeting.
It's not a board meeting, it's a
It's
team
It's
meeting.
not
The
a board
workshop.
meeting, it's for people to come and talk.
Staff is gonna conduct a public meeting.
I mean, it's really directed
It's either-
towards
yeah.
agencies.
Yeah, we should be clear that the director's attendance is not required at that meeting. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
But
meeting
we
by
certainly
staff.
can come to it.
What, I'm sorry?
But we can come to
You
it.
certainly can come to it.
Okay. I get it. Okay, well, it sounds like there's a
Yeah,
motion for 45
with
days.
the attorney's clarification, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we leave it, what staff's recommendation is. We trust staff. I'd like to go with staff recommendation rather than an attorney, I'm sorry, that's in a lawsuit or will be. So my substitute motion is to follow staff recommendation, trust our staff, and use the timing that's been presented to us by staff.
As the maker of the motion, I would like to, however, say that I do trust staff, and they do have a right to stall it as much as they want. And the request for the time actually came from a public person, just a public person who may or may not be involved. And if 15 days really doesn't slow down the process, I'd like to get the 15 days because of the holidays. I guess we call for the question on that. I don't know how.
We need a second on the substitute motion,
Right.
There's been no second on the substitute motion.
Good time.
when they hear that first.
Okay, so we'll,
Call the
got a
question.
motion and a second on the original.
Or no, on the substitute goes first. Did you get a
There-
substitute?
I didn't hear no
There was no
second.
Get a
second.
second,
Okay,
so
okay.
the 45 days.
I didn't hear that,
goes.
okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt staff's recommendation with the exception that it would be 45 days instead of 30 days. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Actions speak louder than words, no.
And just for clarification, I think tomorrow we'll be issuing the actual notice, and that will start the 45-day period, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the intent.
Okay.
Clarification on this motion, because the original motion, you did second, and now you're voting no. So how does the motion go?
Well, it was for discussion. He can move to discuss it, and then if he decides to vote against it after discussion, that's his prerogative.
No, he seconded the initial motion that.
That's right.
And
With
that's okay.
discussion.
But that's for,
For
I mean, I
discussion
could make the
purposes.
motion and then listen to a conversation after it was seconded
Right.
and decide I changed my mind and vote no in the
Yeah.
end. So they're not connected.
Right,
It's
I
simply,
understand, but since the second motion did not go forward, we reverted back to the initial motion, right?
there was
That's
no
right.
second, there was
That's
no
right.
second to the substitute.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, on to action item 2.2, district policy for billing adjustment.
Okay, I'll take that item. So pursuant to a recent billing error issue, the district's Public Awareness, Personnel, and Policy Committee met on October 16th to discuss the need for a policy for handling bill adjustments. The committee did meet. They reviewed the existing procedures and ordinances and did not recommend any policy development or changes. When this item was reported out at the November 1st board meeting, Director Martin did ask that this item be brought forward to the full board for discussion, and that's what's agendized today. The district does have an ordinance number 186, and within that ordinance, it does say that the customer is responsible for prompt payment of costs associated with services provided by the district. The district does not have any policies that specifically address how to handle billing errors. The district practice has been to handle billing adjustments relative to billing errors on a case-by-case basis. So we'll look into them and we'll make whatever adjustments we think are appropriate based on the set of circumstances that surround that case. And within legal limitations, staff will seek payment from customers who have been underbilled, and our attorneys have advised us that we can go back as far as 3 years. Similarly, in the case of overbilling, the district would reimburse the affected customer the amount that they were overbilled. The district does send out approximately 250,000 bills per year, and our billing errors are extremely rare, so it's important to keep that in mind. Per the policy committee's recommendations, staff is performing routine billing surveillance to try to detect any errors that occur and correct them as soon as possible. So this item has been agendized for the board's discussion today, and we'd be happy to listen to any conversation and get whatever direction the board may have.
Director Martin.
Thank you very much for agendizing this. Yeah, as the ordinance states, that people make prompt payments, I do believe all the payments were made promptly when they were asked for by us to them. I don't think they delayed anything. I think they paid us on time. We sent them a bill, they paid us. We sent them a bill, they paid us. Is it really up to them to know that you did the right billing? I don't think so. I don't think that's their problem. I think it's our problem. Subsequent to that, you also said that case-by-case basis, we look at and determine that's not fair. On a case-by-case basis, you either have a policy or you don't. You can't say, the little old lady lives in the mobile home park, you know, we underbilled her by $5 every month, so we'll let her make payments on it for the past 3 years. Would you do that? I don't know that you would or you wouldn't. But there can't be a choice. There has to be a policy, there has to be one way we handle things. And in this case, I don't believe it's the applicant's fault whatsoever. He paid everything asked of him, when asked for him. We made the error. So I feel very strongly about that. If I went to Starbucks every day for a year, 200 days, and the 200th day they said, you know, we've actually been undercharging you $1, you owe us $200. I got a service, I actually got a product and a service, but would they do that? No. So what makes us think we can do that, other than we're the only game in town? And I think that's heavy-handed, and I think it's using authority over and above the way you should use authority by saying, hey, you don't pay us, we'll shut your water off. Because that's an option we have. But it's certainly not fair. That's my idea of that. I don't know how often this has come up in the past. Hopefully it doesn't come up in the future, but it's the first time I've seen it in 5 years. And I think to be just, you have to be fair to everyone across the board.
Director Hernandez.
I would agree that we probably need a policy. That way, there's just no discussion. But I would take a little bit of different view in that if we overpaid a customer and it came to our attention 3 years later, I think we would pay the customer back and not say, oh, too bad, we sent you a bill, you paid it, well, paid too much, or something like that. So I think there is a situation where, it's come up a number of times where the use of the commodity has been used, it should have been paid for. If it wasn't paid for, it needs to be paid for, and we're using the 3-year time period as, okay, we screwed up for 4 years or 5 years, we're only gonna be able to make up 3. I would ask, is that the same on us paying a customer back? Would we only go back 3 years?
So if we had been overbilling, would we be required to go back further than 3 years
To pay them back?
Yeah.
to pay them back?
I'll look to our legal counsel.
Yeah, no, it's settled law. I mean, it's frankly not a close call. 3 years is the statute of
3 years.
limitations, basically, for,
Okay,
to go
so we'd
back.
go back and pay them 3 years of
For either case,
overbilling.
underbilling or overbilling.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, that, although they get a little bit of a break for the overbilling situation as opposed to the underbilling. The legislature hasn't been as consistent about that. But the Palomar Pomerado, to give you a good example, you gotta be careful because they had, in their situation, the city of Poway changed their meters and they were billing, averaged $150,000 to $200,000 a year at the hospital for water. And they changed the meters were installed, they only charged $15,000 to $20,000 each year. And they did that for 10 years. And then somebody woke up and said, hey, wait a minute, we're getting, we're really getting shafted, we need to go back. And so they worked out a settlement on that issue, but they didn't have a firm policy that they couldn't negotiate that. They just, but as it was a practical matter, they could only go back.
As I said, I think we do need a policy, so we don't
Yeah.
have to discuss this ever again. And based on the meeting that we had at the policy committee, we have implemented steps with which we can then more often review the hundreds of thousands of bills that go out. And again, a pretty unique situation here. It's not like it's happening every month or every year, but a policy, I think, is important so that when it does happen, we know what to do and we don't have to talk about it.
Director Evans.
Well, I was going to say, I do think in a way, and that we have a policy, the policy under this ordinance is that the customer is responsible for prompt payment of costs associated with services provided by the district. They did, as Director Martin said, they made prompt payments. They got a prompt payment for every time we told them they'd used a product. We, however, discovered that they had used more than we said, and we gave them a bill for that cost associated with services provided that we can show we did provide, we just billed them wrong. It's our error, but the rule is we try to go back to 3 years, and to follow this, they would pay prompt services for what the cost of their services. And we know what they had those services, and we underbilled them. Now, we could say it's not their responsibility, but I will tell you as myself, I look at my bills and I still make sure that it's right. And if I question it, I'm not gonna say, well, they're underpaying me, I don't wanna find out they're charging me over, so I always check the bill. So I think it's our job to do the best we can and set up a procedure, and when we find an error, to correct it. But I also think there's a responsibility of the person paying the bill to, I mean, I was going to the store and the guy says, hey, $55 for that grocery bag of stuff. You check it, that's what you do. So, I think we're doing the right thing, and as far as the part about practice has been by case, in the policy meeting, what I understood that was, is that if someone did owe money, and one person said, I will pay you the money, but I can only afford to pay you back at $5 a month, we accept that. And if another person says, you're right, I owe you money, I'm gonna write you a check right now, and I'm ticked off that you did this to me, we work with it. That, to me, is what the case by case is. The practice needs to be flexible, depending on the person and how much they're behind and what their life is like. It doesn't change our policy to do that. So I'm with Jim. I think Director Hernandez here, I think we do have a policy, and we tightened up the procedures, and an error unfortunately was made. But the error only indicated that they had been getting services that they had not paid for. And we aren't going back, whatever it was, 6 years or 5 years.
4.5, I think.
4.5 years. We're only going back 3, which seems fair. And it was not an obvious, I mean, when you're talking about Pomerado, I mean, if you were paying 100,000 and now you're only paying 15, somebody should ask questions, but they probably didn't because it was in their favor. So,
Somebody at the water district.
the what?
Somebody at the water district probably should have caught that too. That's a pretty extreme difference.
Yeah,
Culpability on both parties.
yeah.
Director Sano.
Yeah, I agree with Director Martin and Director Hernandez that we do need a policy. I think that's kind of a no-brainer, and I'm very uncomfortable with the whole notion of treating these types of things case by case. I think we need to have a policy that outlines how we do treat these types of situations. And so hopefully, I didn't catch that, Director Hernandez, did you say the policy committee is working on that, or is
No,
that something you
It's
guys?
already in place.
The policy, we haven't defined it to the extent that we're talking about this evening. We did ask staff to go through and put a, what's the term, operating procedure?
Standard operating
Standard
procedure.
operating
Standard of
procedures
operation.
together, so that now we know that instead of looking at this every 3 or 5 months, they're doing it every quarter, they're scanning and looking for the anomalies. So that standard operating procedure is going into place.
But that, okay, and I'm glad to hear that. I think that'll be helpful, and that maybe that's being proactive to try to prevent this type of thing from happening again in the first place, which is nice. But for the case that's at hand, I guess it begs the question, and you know what I always ask is, what's been the precedent? How have we, if we're handling these types of cases case by case, how have we? Can you give me the last 3 cases over the last 3 years of, or whenever there was? I'm sure this isn't the only time this has happened.
Well, since I've been here, which is less than a year, this is the only one I'm aware of to this level of detail. But I would say, as much as I think that the policy has to have some flexibility and some case by case, in every case, I think we should reconcile with the customer in a way that's fair and meets the services that they received. Whether we underbilled or overbilled them, it should go both ways, and we should reconcile. Nobody likes to have these cases be present, but we need to work with the customers. And so, for example, if a customer was underbilled by $50, we may expect immediate payment of the full $50. But in the case that initiated this discussion, it was such a large amount that we didn't even request immediate payment from the customer. We said, contact us to set up a schedule, because we realized the amount was so much that it was unreasonable to ask for them to cut a check. And that's kind of the flexibility we'd like,
And that's
I would
what I'm
recommend in the
referring to
policy.
by case. Is
Director Martin.
flexibility.
So,
of the
and I'm
plan.
sorry, has there been a reconciliation with the customer?
In this case, no. We've been meeting and talking with the customer often. There's some issues that have arisen that have changed where this will probably end up, but, so that one's not resolved.
Do you think it would help to have a policy of some type?
But we do
Well-
have a policy.
It's
Well,
not
we
a
have-
policy, it's an SOP.
We have a
Different.
practice. Would it have helped in resolve this case?
Well, if you already had one, you didn't, but you could make one because of this case.
Well, I can't answer that because I don't know what the policy would have said, but
Well, we can clarify that for you if we put it, agendize it, and
Well,
talk about a policy.
We have a policy, where our policy says the customer is responsible for prompt payment of costs associated
yeah,
with
that's an
services.
ordinance. That's in our ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
And we have practice. We don't have a kind of a policy that
Oh,
would
you
fall
want
somewhere
policy
between the
and
practice and the ordinance.
So could we, with these SOPs, could we develop that into a policy?
It
Let's
could be
call
the-
it policy instead
It
of
could be the
SOP.
basis of that, and
Yeah.
and it looks like that's the direction the board is heading. If the board wanted to direct us to, I would suggest that you give staff an opportunity to draft a policy and then maybe run it by the policy committee to refine it on its way to the board for ultimate approval.
Yeah, I would just caution, my opinion here after listening to all this, is that don't make a policy that's so specific that it's,
Exactly.
every case is unique, and I'm not
Absolutely.
saying that, you know, that you just make up something with each case, but each case has several mitigating factors, really, on both sides of the equation, that
Yeah.
any policy needs to have enough flexibility to work out, to be able to work out something that's amenable to both parties.
And that's where I think we're gonna end up back to just pay the bill, because with, and like you said, if it's some little old lady, we're gonna bend over backwards to try and help some way get it paid off. With the case in point, it's a big deal, we're trying to work through it, but if we put a policy together that, okay, you're gonna pay this bill, and you're gonna pay it in 90 days, and if it's under $50, you're gonna pay it right now. If it's over 500, you're gonna pay it now. I mean.
If it's our mistake, you don't have to pay. I mean,
You know, it's gonna be, it's either gonna be too restrictive, or it's gonna be non-existent.
I completely agree with what the general manager said. Reconciliation. We have not had that with this customer. And I think that's our first step in a policy, is to reconcile, meet with the person. Let's make this clear, we're not talking about $5 a month here. How much are we talking about in arrears, according to your new figures?
I don't know where the original, I'll say what the original letter to them was, that they owed $24,000, I believe is the number, over a 3-year, as far back as we could go.
Right.
Over that 3-year period, we believed that we'd underbilled by $24,000.
Okay, you believe that you're underbilled by 24,000.
Based on the evidence, information we had at our disposal.
It could be 20, could be 15, could be 25.
Well, again,
A
there's
reconciliation.
there's some mitigating factors in this particular case, because apparently the usage changed somewhere in there,
Yeah.
and no one really knows when that happened.
Right, so, and I didn't want to turn this into a conversation about that particular case, but Director Ellertharp is correct.
That's why we're here.
That particular case, there was the way that the water meter, because the sewer charges were based on the amount of water they use. At a point in time when we established the account, they were using one of the meters for both domestic and irrigation. Sometime after the fact that the account was set up, the property owner changed the way the water was plumbed, and they no longer use it for domestic, it's all irrigation. So they no longer have sewer charges associated with that. We don't know when that occurred. When we sent out the corrected bill, we didn't know that was the case. We only found that out as part of this reconciliation process. We sent people out there, we actually identified that the plumbing it had been replumbed, it was no longer connected for domestic use, which would put a demand on the sewer system. So at the time we sent out the bill, our information was correct. In conversation with the property owner, we realized that there was a change in the plumbing, and we're working with them to find out when that change occurred so that we can define how much money should be billed or returned to the customer.
Well, thank you. That's all I'm talking about is reconciliation.
Yep.
There should be a meeting of the minds, not just nasty grams sent back and forth. It's not a nasty gram you sent to Bill. Sorry, we underbilled you. If I was to receive that at home, I'd call that a nasty gram,
Yeah.
but that's because I'd have to pay it. I mean, so
Well,
all I'm saying is that there needs to be a meeting of the minds, which has not, or had not, as far as I'm concerned, taken place, or as far as my knowledge.
Yeah.
Now that I understand that you are reconciling it, and they're talking back and forth, it makes more sense.
Okay.
Same as you would do with a little old lady, same as you would do with John Q. small business customer.
Yep.
I mean, but that wasn't taking place. And that isn't what I heard from the report given back from the meeting, that was going to take place. You know, all I heard was that, we got it here. And it's like, you know.
Well,
let's
no, that was
reconcile.
not what you heard. I told you that, and after I apologized, that we in fact did have, we sent a letter, had not received a response back, but we did put in the ask staff to start doing standard operating procedures, so this would be minimized to almost non-existent. I think what I heard the manager say is he would like us to recommend to them that they put together a policy that was flexible but specific, and bring it back to the policy committee and then ultimately to the board for approval, and that's what I'd like to see happen.
I think it's a great recommendation.
Okay.
If I may say one thing, I was not here when the committee reported back, but I would like to say that when this public policy meeting was directed, they were not told to discuss and solve or figure out how to do a specific case. And I think coming back, and we didn't come back and have an opinion on that case. And I think it's a little bit unfair to act like we did. We were under the understanding that we were to check into the policy, how it had happened, what did the policy say, did it need to be changed? Obviously, even though it's district policy for billing adjustment, we're saying we don't have policy, it's an ordinance. I feel they're kind of the same. But I just want to make it really clear, the policy committee was not asked to resolve that situation. We were simply asked to find out how it happened and to what needed to be done that didn't happen again, and make sure we're on target. And reconciliation was exactly what was in the process. In fact, we talked about another case of an older woman who had been underbilled and was upset by getting a notice and how it was handled. And in the end, she got everything settled in a beautiful way and reconciled, and she was able, it wasn't a lot of money, but, so I just want to make it clear that the policy committee did not fail to do what they were told to do. And I appreciate very much I don't know what you said, Jim, but I appreciate that you are recommending that we follow your recommendation now.
Okay, do we have consensus that staff will develop
Yeah.
some
Yes.
draft policy?
Right, I don't think we don't need a vote or anything. We have it, we'll put together a policy and we'll schedule a meeting with the policy committee.
And can we also direct staff to come back to us and let us know what the final outcome of this particular case was? It sounds like you guys are still working through it.
We can do that.
An update, I mean, we don't, I
Doesn't-
hope we're not pushing to get it resolved, we just,
No. Whenever it is resolved.
Yeah.
If you can just give us a 10-second update.
I will.
or 20-second
that.
update.
Sounds good. All right. Okay, on to reports. General Manager.
Okay, I'll try to keep them brief. I have three. I'd mentioned to the board before that the San Marcos Unified School District had expressed some interest in our adjacent property. They did come out yesterday and perform some soil testing to further their due diligence on whether they want to acquire the property for use as a school site. And the district, per the agreement that we entered into with them, will be provided with the results of the soils test.
When do we expect those results?
A quick question to the attorney is, how do we want to stay within the law limits, but how do we get results from them so they don't drag it into a political question?
Well,
That's what
we're
they're
going
trying
to
to-
follow the time frames unless otherwise directed. And the time frames are 60 days from when the notice was sent to them that they have the right to raise their hand and say, we're interested in the property. Then after that, we have 90 days to negotiate, and in good faith. But that's something that would come back to you. You don't have to agree to it, you know, whether that's going to be a negotiation process. Once that's done, we're done. There's nothing that's going to change from a timing standpoint.
So
In the
we already-
meantime, we're going to get this soils report.
We already started the 90-day period.
Not yet.
Not
So-
quite, but
So
it's
the
close.
letter went out on September 21st, so that started the 60-day clock.
Yeah.
So we may still hear from the city. I haven't heard from them yet, but the city may say, oh yeah, we're within 60 days, we're interested too.
November 21st.
So it'll be
Yeah.
November 21st, this stops the 60-day clock. And then I would say, in my opinion, that starts the 90-day clock,
It doesn't,
so.
What-
yeah.
question. Relative to, with the 60-day clock ending on November 21st, does that mean that others beyond the agencies can then say, we'd like to talk to you about this?
No.
Or because the school district has put a stake in the ground, we have to wait for that to go through the motion?
No, it is only the city and the school district. and they got 60 days to raise their hand. And if they
Well-
don't,
well, the city-
then nobody
Because we have
else,
to offer it to
they
public.
got until November 21st.
Didn't the
to
school
say-
district raise their hand?
Yeah, they did.
Okay,
And now that, after the 21st is expired, that's 60 days, there'll be a 90-day period of good faith negotiations.
Oh.
They may have looked at it and decided, look, we're not gonna,
we can't,
Who
we
knows?
can't, we
Who
can't
knows what's
entertain
motivating?
other offers during that 90-day negotiation period.
we can entertain offer, if the city says they're interested in it, yes, we could negotiate in good faith with the city, we can negotiate in good faith with the city, or rather with the school district.
But the city needs
That's
to
it.
tell us in the
Okay.
first 60 days, is that correct?
Yes.
The city has to step forward in the first
They
60
have to,
days.
you have to come back in writing to us
In
and
the
say,
first
we
60
are
days."
interested in the property.
But Jeff, I think Director Hernandez asked,
Okay.
can another party come in? A non-school district, a non-city? Was that your question?
That was my question.
After
No.
the 60 days?
No,
Public
within the
No.
60. and
No,
then-
no,
No.
after the 60
After
days.
the 60 days?
No.
So
no.
then they
This
have
is-
to wait another 90 days.
This is, understand, this is only between, the statute only requires us to negotiate this between the city and the district, or the school district in the district, or rather, the city, or school district and the district. That's it. It's just these two parties. Once we go through the 90-day period, then it's wide open.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
after the 90.
all right.
So,
Yeah.
so that was my clarification, and I
February.
think I understood what Jim was asking, so thank you. But also, do we have any kind of ballpark idea how long it'll take to conduct the soil sample and for the results to come back?
I don't know. I think the testing itself is done. I don't know how long the results will take to come in.
General Manager Crowe, yeah, you're correct. The testing was done Monday, this collective testing, and they'll probably get the testing results probably by middle of next week, but then I don't know how long the report will take. They will provide us a copy of it at some point, but we're not gonna have a copy of it before November 21st.
So-
Oh, no, absolutely not. 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Okay. Is it safe to assume that before the school district chose to pay for a soil sample, that they walked the property, they looked at it, they saw the size of it, they saw the hills, they saw everything, and yet they, in doing so, they still decided to go forth and spend school district funds on a soil sample?
Yeah, so the district has been out there twice. They met previously with District Engineer Gumpel, like, that was a couple weeks ago. Generally walked the site, maybe kicked some dirt, but they weren't taking soil samples. But they looked, they understood the topography, the size, and they still decided to contact us and say, hey, we'd like to go out and do some further due diligence on the site.
And then just also to clarify that all of this due diligence is at the school district's expense and not at the water district's expense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, in the good faith, I was thinking of the words that our council was, in the good faith negotiations, could we, in our communications with the school district, ask of them that if they get to a point within their due diligence process that they decide that this is not going to work for them for whatever reason, can we ask for them to tell us, to notify us sooner than later versus waiting the entire 90-day period? So we can start moving
Certainly.
forward without them
Yeah.
if they're not gonna pursue it.
We can certainly request that, but if we don't hear anything from them within that 90-day, we probably have to let the whole 90-day period.
No, I
Yeah, but
recognize
we-
that.
you're right. No,
But
we
if they
can
could
say-
if they decide like, hey, whatever, it's too small of a site, right?
Yep.
And could they
Too
just
expensive.
notify us in writing that we're no longer interested?
Yep.
Right.
That would terminate the 90.
And particularly that's important.
But at
if the
this time,
city
it's
has-
February 21.
Correct.
That's a done deal, February 21.
Yeah, if it's 90 days, if your
Yep.
calculations are
Yeah.
correct.
Give or take.
It's a done deal.
This time, I'm being the cynic, and I
Unless
really
it-
do want this not to linger. February 21? I know,
February
it's
21.
kind of surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, I am
Yeah.
surprised.
But I don't want this to be a ruse that they can wave in front of the public and their board members and
Right.
say, oh, yeah, we're looking for sites, when this is just
Well,
milking.
that's the politics of it.
Join the
Well, but I don't, that's why I'm saying, I'm being the cynic,
That
and
may be what's going on.
February 21, the painting are getting off the lap.
Right.
And this February 21, is that the end of the negotiating period? Or can, at the February 20th, they go, okay, we need an extension, or we need some
That's-
other hocus
that's
pocus.
That's entirely your prerogative.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's the
And I, you know, I hope it works for them, although it was brought to my attention today, they need schools elsewhere, not on this particular property. But that's their opinion.
Maybe just due diligence on their
Yeah,
part. Who
I
knows?
think that's worthy.
What does a soil sample cost?
I
I know the
don't
school
know.
districts, you know,
It depends what type of testing you're doing.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna,
is it $10,000 or is it $1,000?
It's
oh, no,
probably-
it's gonna be 10.
10?
I mean, I believe it's gonna be 10, because they're gonna test for everything. That's how they found the site was unacceptable over there by South Lake. They found arsenic.
Arsenic.
And, you know, the soil itself.
Which is natural.
Yeah, natural arsenic.
We found natural arsenic.
The soil could be expansive, and it means more cost than doing the grading, or they could find serious
So
rock.
this is of a significant expense to the school district.
Well,
It seems-
well, how big is your budget? If it's
On
big
the
as
other
ours,
side,
no,
yeah.
it's not significant. It's,
I understand
Do we
if you
have
have
someone
a
lined up, Jim?
$50 million budget,
I
$10,000
have
is a
people
lot
that
of
are,
money, but it's still
the
money.
guy that's been
Interested.
calling me, and he wants to put a school there.
Okay.
Can I
But
ask
it's a
James
charter
a
school.
question about the inspection over there? Sure. Did they notice it's a hill? Did they get that at all for the school district? It's a big hill, rock hill?
Director Martin, yes, they absolutely noticed that it is a big hill.
All right, we'll make
They-
sure.
And I also pointed out that it was a big hill.
Yeah,
Yes.
good, okay. It's like,
In the school districts, in school
That
building,
engineering degree is paying off.
Director Martin,
yes, sir.
in building schools, moving 1,000,000 yards of dirt, not a big deal.
Okay, I think
A
we,
rock.
Public money.
I think we've beaten this
To death?
hill
Yes,
of rock
more
into
than-
All right,
soil.
a couple more report outs. So the district is in the process of requesting proposals from consultants to do a solar energy study. We do have proposals from 3 firms, and staff is in the process of evaluating those. And assuming assuming some of them, or even one of them pass the initial review, the board will eventually get an opportunity to weigh in on that. Real quickly, tomorrow, the district staff will be performing an Emergency Operations Center training. That's just to make sure our staff is prepared to handle wildfires, earthquakes, that type of thing. There will be no impact to district operations, so water will still flow and toilets will still flush.
I'm trying to make
It's all good.
decisions about appointments.
And that's the only items I had, other than to say happy Thanksgiving to the board and to all the staff. So I don't believe we'll see each other before then.
Thank you.
Did the staff pick up all their turkeys? Were they gone?
Which turkeys are these?
Oh, I thought we gave out turkeys.
No.
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 We are the turkeys.
Those days are done.
Those days are well over.
We are the turkeys.
Yeah.
Okay, on to district legal counsel.
I came across an interesting webinar, which was part of the Water Foundation, related to implementation of SB 231, which is the Herzberg bill, and that bill changes the legal definition of sewers to include stormwater activities under Prop 218. It's kind of a worthwhile, if you want, I'll email it to you if you've got a little time. I think it's worth to take a look at it. I think you'd appreciate it. So if nobody has any objections, I'll send that on to you. Herzberg's in it, and it's implementation and do the right thing is the theme. So for those of you that are interested, I'll send it to you.
That's a big deal for agencies that have stormwater responsibilities.
Yes,
Not so
yes.
big to us, but huge for cities.
But it has some good background in the implementation and how it may spill over, and it is part of the definition
So
of sewer.
statutorily, if an agency currently doesn't have stormwater authority, does this
Well, I
bill
think-
grant that to them?
I don't think so, but I think this is why you need to take a look at it. It's around the edges. I think it would be helpful for us to be cognizant of it, so.
Interesting.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope not. That's a whole other can of worms.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. San Diego County Water Authority.
Well, the Water Authority is actually dark for the general meeting in November, but tomorrow we'll be at an ENO, Engineering and Operating Committee meeting, and it's mostly closed session. And Glenn, did you look at, I forgot what exactly, is it about the transfer agreement, or was it about?
I didn't get a chance to
I'm
take a look at
sorry.
it. Yeah.
I didn't have it, and I thought he might have it on him. But anyway, we'll be at closed session tomorrow, and then we don't have meetings again until December.
All right, thank you. Okay, on to Encino Wastewater Authority. I attended both of the committee meetings this month. The Policy and Finance Committee was on November 7th. We reviewed EWA's CalPERS unfunded pension liability and also reviewed resolutions for financial transaction authorization. I attended in Director Hernandez's place, the Capital Improvement Committee on November 8th. We reviewed a septage receiving feasibility study, authorization for a sole source procurement of laboratory equipment, and the screenings equipment procurement contract award. What was that? On the standing committees, we had a legal legislative affairs committee on the 7th, I believe.
We did. And so as I reported last meeting, we conducted an RFP, and we had received 5 proposals. And then after that meeting, the legal committee and our general manager reviewed those proposals and then discussed them at the most recent legal committee, and we decided to move forward to the rest of the board with 4 of those proposals. One of them was a firm called, I don't have it written down what it stands for, but maybe you do, Glenn, but it was the AALRR.
Yeah.
But I think that's just I always equate that to that they're in LA. There's a lot of A's and there's a lot of L's. And so the primary reason for not moving them along was that their firm's distance to our water district, and since we are built for travel time, we just didn't think that made a whole lot of sense. There were 4 other firms that will be coming forward. General Manager Pruitt has prepared a really nice kind of comparison chart taking all the information, at least some of the key aspects of each of the proposals, and kind of comparing them so we can look at kind of apples to apples. Who's going to represent us if they're chosen? What's their hourly rate? Where's their nearest office? Those types of things. So I'm sure you're going to be sharing that with everybody at some point, so you can see that forthcoming. December 6th, is when this is all going to be presented to the whole board, at least this initial kind of.
I think you reported on it yesterday's meeting.
Finance? Are we doing something with legal on December 6th?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay, maybe I'm thinking finance. So we are going to be doing firm interviews, and the goal, if I recall, was to have them done by the end of the year.
That would be my recommendation, if we can get those done by the end of the year.
So we'll be setting those meetings up, and obviously with 4 firms, it's probably going to take a couple days to do that.
Is it possible to establish right now where those dates might be? It's in December, calendar's filling really fast for the holidays.
Yeah, the committee, if I may, the committee did suggest 2 days, 2 half-days, with a couple hours dedicated to each of 2 firms on each of those days. So if the board can coordinate their calendars and get 2 days in December.
Well, I think what was suggested is, can we do that now?
Right.
I can, yes. You want an answer from me, I can.
Can you do that? I'm assuming, Mike, you probably have the hardest schedule.
Yeah, I can look and see how things are looking.
I'm open on the 25th for sure.
I can do it on the evening of the 24th.
Humbug.
Well, there's always the 31st.
I don't know if it's reasonable to ask this of the firms, and maybe our legal counsel can answer, but would it be totally uncalled for to do it between Christmas and New Year's, or is that week out?
I thought our GM had a schedule that was a little tighter than that.
Yeah, I was hoping to get the interviews completed before the Christmas break, the
Right.
year-end holiday break.
Right.
I think the time between Christmas and New Year's would be very difficult to get.
How about like the 14th and 15th, is that?
What days of the week is that?
Thursday and a
Thursday and
Friday.
Friday.
Friday?
Fine with me.
I've got a 10:30 on the 14th.
Okay.
Is it movable or you're stuck?
No, I'm stuck with that. It's a
How
city
about the
council.
13th and 15th?
We've got an EWA board meeting that morning, but they tend to
Oh, yeah, that's quick.
only go to about 9:30 or so.
So you have a 10:30 on the 13th?
14th.
14th? So, and I have some morning commitments on the 15th, or the
How about the 12th and 13th?
Wait, the 14th? Hold on.
The 12th is difficult for me, but I could miss that if I
Oh,
had to.
yeah, 14th.
On the 12th, I've got a 10 o'clock commitment. It's a twice-a-month commitment, but that's at 10 o'clock.
Well, we're trying to get two in.
Yeah,
2 half-days.
How about the afternoon of the 12th?
open.
That may or may not be difficult, that's when Hanukkah begins, and I don't know any of the attorneys involved, but they have to be home by sundown.
Well, we'll certainly get them home by then.
No, if you're doing a 2-hour interview, and I don't know where they're coming
Well,
from.
it's in the afternoon.
Well,
Sundown's
I
at
would
5
recommend,
o'clock.
we're not gonna spend 2 hours on each attorney.
Well,
Oh,
I would suggest we budget 2 hours. The interview itself will probably be an hour to an hour and a half, but that would allow the
Okay.
director's opportunity to have a conversation afterwards.
I would be shocked. Never had an hour and a half interview in 45 years personally.
This
But-
is important, not your first
Attorney is
chance.
very important.
Happy
Ask Jeff.
Just the
Thanksgiving.
lawyers,
Thank you.
just the lawyer.
All of you.
Okay, have a nice holiday. All right, so where are we at?
So,
Maybe the afternoon of the 12th.
yes,
What
I
about
think,
the afternoon of the 14th and 15th? You had problems with the mornings.
Yeah, no, I'm good in the
The
afternoon.
afternoon.
the 14th is a disaster for me, guys, sorry. But
13th and
But the
15th.
12th is, I can do the afternoon, like if we start like at 1 o'clock, 1
Okay.
PM and go from 1 to 5.
Yeah,
That's 4 hours, that's 2 hours each, right? If there's not any sort of
Well,
other
I'm
holiday.
sure out of the 4, there might be 2 that are not doing Hanukkah. Maybe it's
Right.
all Hanukkah. We'll find out.
I'm just trying to think of it.
That's fine. I'm just saying,
Very-
we've
very
got some
mindful.
options.
And then the 13th, is that not the second Wednesday of the,
It's the third, yes, the second Wednesday of the month.
Second, so there's no board meeting.
there's no board meeting, that's right, yeah.
Our board meeting's on
So-
the 6th.
So I could do the 13th, if, same thing, kind of 1 to 5 type of thing.
Afternoon?
yeah.
It would be preferable to have them as close as possible together so that's fresh in their minds.
So 12th and 13th, 1 to 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to throw out the 15th and if we need it? Because we're really telling these 4 people, these are your only 2 days.
I'm
just
wide,
asking.
I can do the 15th as a backup.
So that's
if
a
we need
backup.
one.
As a
Afternoon
backup.
of the 15th?
The morning or the same time?
Afternoon, it's, I heard.
I'm-
Afternoon of the 15th?
Okay,
It would be better. I'm currently wide open, but afternoons are always better. But if they can only make it at 10 o'clock, I'm probably.
I'm gonna try to squeeze them into the 12th and the 13th.
okay.
I'm just trying to get us to give a date if we need to do one
Yeah.
more.
So,
You know,
when is the 15th a good day for decision day?
Well,
What a
maybe,
decision. What else would I get
well,
together?
why don't we make a decision on the, after the last
yeah, I
interview on
would
the
say it could be the
14th?
13th. If it's clear,
Or the 13th, I mean.
That's
You know.
fine, that's fine if it's
Yeah,
clear.
I mean, really, I think we're gonna be sitting on our hands for quite a long time during these interviews.
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think there's
Really?
gonna be 45 minutes to an hour. We talked about this in the legal committee, so there'll be about 45 minutes to an hour of them talking about them, right? And then there's gonna be another 45 minutes to an hour of us doing Q&A with them. So I mean, 5 people, an hour worth of questions goes by pretty quick.
Well, we're recommending, though, that we have more than 5 people, are we not?
Oh, and that, oh, yep, you're right too. The other thing we discussed was that we were going to have, obviously, the general manager part of this interview process, but perhaps at the GM's discretion, 1 or 2 other key members of the district's management team to participate as well.
Okay,
Well,
At the GM's discretion.
I think the consensus is we'll sit or we'll talk. 1 to 5.
we'll see how it works.
If your hands fall asleep, you know, just shake them when you're sitting on them.
I'll bring a vibrating.
That was good. Took me a while to figure out what you were talking
All
about.
right,
All right, anything else on the
12th,
legal
13th,
committee?
1 to 5, with an option for the 15th.
yep.
Okay.
All right, on to the engineering committee meeting. We had one.
Engineering committee, we had a magnificent engineering committee. We talked about AMI, which are the reading of the meters, going even further, working with Olivenhain on a potential expansion of the tower up at Double Peak, and getting some grants to allow a certain segment of our community to go to, is it AMI? Now we're on AMR.
We're on AMR.
We're on
as we
AMR
convert to
now.
AMI.
Automated meter reading versus meter, what's the I?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. And that's where they just shoot it through the air and it comes to the computer, and we can expand further and get it to the homeowner, which is really what I want. I don't care about the rest of you guys. I want the homeowner to be able to look at his bill on any time he wants and find out how much he's using or not using. So we had them go ahead, they're gonna do a study, and they're gonna bring a propagation study, which is telling everybody where all the opportunities exist. And then we'll proceed further with more conversations with the Liebenheim. That was the AMI. Groundwater, we had a nice discussion with the former firm of RMC, that's now a bigger firm.
Woodard and Kern.
Yeah, about doing a 30,000-foot level study relative to groundwater and to determine what the options are, potentially what the cost could be, using the data that we have. And we're gonna bring that back to the board, that, the approval of that study.
I'm hoping to bring it back to the board next board meeting for engineering scope fee configuration.
All right, very good. And it's just a toe in the water to see where we're going with groundwater. This is the same study that Liebenheim has been doing, same firm actually, and so we'll move that forward. To bring it forward by that meaning, bring it forward to the board. And then last one was the locker room. We had a little bit of an update, got some plans to look at. I think there's gonna be some real good savings that we had talked about originally, and that is coming back to us in January. Did I hear that correctly?
The direction for the committee was to go and send it out to the board and provide an update in January when it's up to bid, with the estimate.
Oh, yeah, that was it. We did not have an architect's estimate at the committee meeting, so in January we'll get an architect's estimate.
All right, thank you. And we had a finance committee meeting yesterday, I believe.
We had one yesterday, but the one we're reporting on today is the one that we had October 31st.
Oh, okay.
And at that one, we were planning for our future committee meetings, what we're gonna go over, what we're gonna do. One of the things that was brought up was Director Martin requested ROIs be included in the staff reports to the board and in the budget process for expenditures such as replacing systems or vehicles or adding new systems. What's our return on investment? If there isn't one, we gotta look at our ratepayers and say, we wanna be the cool kids, we wanna have the nicest truck. You know, I'm saying, you wouldn't do that, being facetious. Following topics, we brought up quite a few topics, which is all listed in the report that you received, but updates concerning interest earned, OPEB, PERS, MOU negotiations, analysis of outsourced district property assets, review of warrant list, energy analysis, T-SAL, reserve policy, debt planning. We have quite a few things, but we left it in general manager's hands to prioritize the topics as to the timeliness. And I believe we're doing the, our meeting yesterday shows that, but I'll report on that in our next meeting, when it's agendized. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. We gave no directions, we created no SOPs.
I do just have one question on your list of topics that you were bringing forward. So one of them was review of warrant lists. Could you tell me what that would mean?
Yeah, I like reviewing warrant lists, and I realize it holds up the whole meeting here. So rather than having to do it here, I could ask any questions I have at that meeting and get answers, rather than holding up the entire board. Because they're personal questions, most times the board doesn't really care. I'd be more than glad to do it here, but I'm just suggesting that it be done at a committee meeting.
I think that's a great suggestion, and that's normally what takes place at a finance committee, is kind of.
I agree, but
list of
my
warrants.
concern is if I want to do any of these things, I feel I like to read, I read the whole agenda thoroughly.
Well, it's not to say that,
But I have questions, and I just call. And I sort of feel like the committees were set up to me, and we don't, it's just my comments, sorry. The committees were set up to me to resolve an issue or look at something by the direction of the committee. Policy got together because we said we needed to. You started EO because you know, it was a direction to look into the free water lists. Finance was directed to get the audit system going. If this is just becoming fact-finding missions, then I feel those kind of questions, it's our responsibility to either just ask on our own, because that's simple and it's just for your own information, and it doesn't need to involve an entire staff, or to the benefit of the whole board. I mean, someone may not have sat through the warrants and asked what $20,000 went to, you know, IBM M&M Candy Company, but when it's pointed out to them, they learned from that question. So I looked at several of them. I don't know I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm just saying the purpose of these committees to me is not information gathering for the sake of individuals. It's for a purpose to speed up the process for the board on issues that are really serious. I think I may not just agree with who's doing the policy that finally, committee that ended up with the legal thing, but it's a very specific reason you're doing it, and I appreciate that you guys went through that process, and that's my only concern on it. This is not, this is not my idea what committees are about. And if there's information to learn, then we should either all learn it or we should ask it privately if it's our personal opinion.
are you speaking about the warrant issue specifically?
I'm talking about several of them, when it's reserve, debt planning. I'm just asking, I don't understand.
Those are all things that come back to the board. We don't make any decisions.
Not
on it.
asking about it, not talking about a decision. I am saying I don't feel the committees are set up as a duplicity of effort in that either you do it, it's not solving an issue. If we don't have an issue, you're saying with the reviews you didn't have an issue, it's just you like to look at them. It's information gathering.
There's nothing to preclude somebody at the board level from asking a question of
No,
warrants
I
or anything.
understand that. We can ask all of these at the board. What I'm wanting to understand is why would we set up a committee and pay $400 of the ratepayers' money for someone who's seeking information they could ask at a board meeting, because we don't want to stay late? Those are my questions.
Clarify, because
Director Smith.
I don't think anybody, and I'm on that committee, and I was part of that discussion. I don't think anybody suggested that we were going to have a finance meeting just to review the warrants list. That was one of the things, when we do have a finance meeting, that we may choose to review, especially if there are items that come to us that we kind of find. One of the things and I mentioned this since in the recorded record, is I'm always a little bit kind of taken aback by the big swings we have with our gas and electric bill from month to month. And I don't always want to take it, pull it off the agenda and talk about it here at the board meeting, but I always sometimes wonder, why do we have a $50,000 bill from SDG&E one month and either no bill or a $10,000 bill the next month? And just curious. I'm sure it's all up and up and legit. But I can't imagine that we would call a finance meeting just to talk about the warrants list. So I think this is being
Okay.
taken completely out of context.
Let me ask
blown
you-
out of proportion, and I disagree with the director's understanding of the purpose of the committees. It's a difference of opinions. I respect her opinion, but I have a different opinion.
I respect yours too, and I just want to say, Mike, if you are concerned about the fluctuations in the electrical things, if you are not on the finance committee, would you not take time to find the answers on your own?
Yes, I would.
You would find the answers on your own?
And I've done it before.
Okay.
I would ask to
That's my
discuss it at the
point.
board meeting.
If any of us have individual items, it's our job to go and ask staff, just ask them for us.
I understand that, but.
And the
we're-
committees are supposed to be something that's important, and it should be subservient to the whole board.
There's a number.
Not just making up an agenda of what
There's-
you want to do for every month.
There is a number of important matters that were discussed that are coming forward, including our PERS issues that are coming up that we're going to be talking about. Obviously, we're working through a legal RFP right now. This is, you picked out one little item that may.
I did
that
because
may
it
or
was-
may never even be discussed at the finance meeting.
Okay, even OPEB and PERS, Mike, I would like to be involved in that. But I don't have the honor of being paid $200 to sit at your meeting. I get to do it by myself. Or I go and spend my time. This isn't about the money to me, it's about what the committees are for. And I personally feel
You brought it up
that
twice now.
I have brought it twice, because I feel we're spending the ratepayers' money for information gathering and micromanaging, and I don't believe that's the job of the board members. I feel if there's an issue with OPEB and PERS, it should be brought forward, the board should confirm, we don't all want to look at it, we'll hand it to a committee. And then the committee looks at it and comes back with a recommendation.
Thank you for your.
I don't think it's the committee saying, let's get together and have a meeting so we can decide what we're gonna be doing every month for the
And
rest of the
I'll tell
year.
you for the third time, we're
That's
not-
what it
that-
says
that's
right
not what
here.
we're having.
Someone does
then you-
ask for monthly meetings,
Then you misunderstood it.
so nobody does ask for regular monthly meetings on the fourth Thursday of every month? Nobody,
We are.
If we have items to discuss, yes.
at whose discretion? Yours, not the board's. That's my concern.
didn't-
Well, we can
You
make
don't
it-
have to agree, you can
I'll
respect,
be-
I respect your opinion, I'm just saying, I will tell my ratepayers, we spend a greater deal amount of money for information gathering and micromanaging.
Yeah, you should show
And
them.
that's what I
You should show them
believe.
this packet with the compensation that all the board members have received. I think you're number 2 on the list, so go ahead and
I
talk to
am
your-
number
go
2
talk
on
to
the
your
list,
ratepayers all
but
about
I
it.
also know that I don't go to meetings that I
And you're
can't
like
feel
3
like I
times as
can
much as
make
me.
back.
I think
We're done.
We're done with this.
We're
part.
done. You're
Now
right.
we don't want to talk about money.
Discuss you're the president, move on.
Okay. Did you have anything to add?
I was gonna boldly step into the fray. If you wanna move along, that's
I'd
fine.
recommend against it at this
Okay.
point.
It wouldn't end well for me.
Okay, on to director's reports on travel, conference, and seminars. Let's start with Director Snow.
Yeah, the only thing that I attended was the invitation by Senator Joel Anderson's office for the Water District to meet with the senator and talk about any legislative matters that are going on in Sacramento, kind of for just a general update, but also to talk about anything specific to the water that we would either like to talk about, and then he also had a few things that he asked us about pertaining to the current Met and Water Authority litigation that's taking place, and we talked a little bit about some regulations around water reuse, and I thought it was a very worthwhile meeting, and it's unfortunate that more board members couldn't go, but I think that it was very beneficial, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do it again in the future. And I thank the senator for the invitation.
I'm sorry I missed it. That sounds like it was
Yeah,
very
it was.
worthwhile.
It was.
It was.
I bet it was.
All right, Director Martin.
I don't believe. I don't believe I had anything.
Okay. I've had nothing to report as well. Director Hernandez.
I was at the Anderson meeting as well. It was very beneficial. And he brought up, interesting, Mike touched on it relative to the County Water Authority and Metropolitan. And I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss the topic that we had at the pre-meeting relative to the interaction between the manager and the board members at the Water Authority, and how that information is being choked off and not being more openly discussed so that we can direct our representative to take particular action. I don't know if that's appropriate to discuss that, or if we should bring it back to another agenda, or we should just let that sleeping dog lie.
You're talking about our relationship with the Water Authority and the information flow, that's what
Yes,
you're?
yes.
Well, I could touch on it if the board would like. So a number of the general managers for the water districts in the county have expressed concern with the Water Authority that we're not being informed of critical issues so that we can coordinate with our agency reps so that they can effectively represent our organizations down at the Water Authority board meetings. The Water Authority has gotten into a habit of throwing critical issues into closed session very early, and that precludes the Water Authority staff from sharing information with district staff because of the closed session confidentiality. The Water Authority did have a meeting this Monday that they invited the general managers too. We had to sign a non-disclosure statement that we wouldn't share the information with anybody other than our agency rep. And they shared information on one particular topic. I'm hoping that that's a move in the right direction, that they engage the general managers and the technical staff of the agencies earlier on and not tell us 2 weeks before a critical item goes to the Water Authority Board. So, and I know it's been frustrating to our representative, Director Evans, that she can't even discuss information with me. She's in a closed session and she's precluded from sharing information with me. So hopefully this is starting to break down that barrier that the Water Authority's put in place.
Well, not to mention the other board members. I mean,
Well, and that's, you know,
Exactly.
that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
we've been pounding the drum about transparency for the last half a dozen years, and this just flies right in the face of it.
Right.
Now, I understand there are closed session elements that you don't want to
Yeah.
discuss, but I don't have any idea what critical,
It's sort of a recent development, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
I believe it's all a byproduct of all the litigation that's taken place
Well-
between the Water Authority and Metropolitan. Now that some of that is resolved, hopefully we can calm down all the dialogue.
and that's what Senator Anderson suggested, you know, perhaps a letter should be formulated from our board to the Water Authority going, hey, let's try and get this thing resolved and see if we can't join hands and say kumbaya.
All right, Director Evans, any
No,
travel
I
comments?
didn't, been sick, thanks.
Director Martin?
One comment on that, it really sounds like the tail is wagging the dog. Management and the attorneys are controlling the Water Authority and not us.
I agree with that.
So that's a problem, and our representative, I'm sure, is working hard at putting together a coalition of board members to vote against that. Although it may not be popular, it's the right thing to do.
And is there a coalition being built?
There's a coalition of general managers that have been working with Water Authority staff, the Water Authority general manager, and I believe that the delegates are also starting to have conversations
Yeah, they
about.
are.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to.
Don't remember hearing anything about this at Kawa, which is where we have a group of participants together.
Perhaps there'll be a forthcoming Water Authority report with announcing the establishment of this delegation.
We'll see. Okay, on to other business. Couple information items. The quarterly board expenses are in the agenda package, and also the North County Economic Development Corporation North County Business Practice information is in there as well. All right, on to director's comments, future agenda items. Director Evans. Director Evans. Director Martin.
I don't know if it's necessary of tonight's discussion, if we need to agendize the committee's duties and responsibilities and vote on it so that we can have committees do their work. I don't know what's necessary after this.
If I can maybe address that. So we were going to start a strategic plan. That kind of got sidelined because of a variety of issues. My recommendation is that maybe December, but more likely January, that we have some kind of a workshop that we talk about strategic planning issues, and that'd be a great opportunity to put on that topic, how self-directed should committees be versus being directed to study certain issues by the board. So I'll put that on a list of things to include in the strategic planning discussions.
I think that would be a very appropriate item for that planning session.
That's an item by itself.
All right, any future comment or?
Yeah, so, as I mentioned earlier, when we were back in 2.1, I wasn't really familiar with what we call the scoping meeting. And so, I didn't realize that it was a staff that was meeting particularly with staffs of other agencies for the most part. And so, I was confused by one of the public speakers who mentioned that the meeting should be at 6 o'clock, so it's an important meeting. But if it's really agency to agency talking with each other, I would think the agencies that are coming here with questions to meet with our staff would want to do it during business hours. But if it's for the public, and I'm still a little bit kind of confused about that, because it was so quick. One director had mentioned that, can we move it to 6? And everybody, and staff just goes, yes, we can. So I'm like, I just assumed that it must be because somebody from the public said so, but I couldn't imagine if, let's just say hypothetically, the city of San Marcos wanted to come and meet with staff for the scoping meeting, that they would want to all come after. So what is it? Is it for the public or is it for the agencies?
James, why don't you come up and address it? It's kind of for both. I mean, it's an opportunity for, like our attorney mentioned, specific, like the city and the county and that, but it is also an opportunity for other interested parties. So,
Including private citizens. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. It's, the intent of the scoping meeting is really for other public agencies, and they typically don't attend. They have a letter, usually a lot of them have a form letter, especially in the NGOs, non-governmental agency, organizations have a form letter that says, you know, we want to make sure that nothing is going in the coastal zone, or we want to make sure that you look at any artifacts in this area. Every now and then, we'll actually have a City of San Marcos person at a scoping meeting. Usually we'll have people in the development community at the scoping meeting, but they're typically asking for, where's the document? And then we go through the explanation of this is to scope the document. But public is allowed to come, and of course, instead of a standard form letter, which we typically get, obviously, there is the possibility of getting other type of specific comments, as Director Hernandez was pointing out. But typically, for example, the last 2 times we've done master plans, you get standardized letters from the same agencies or the same non-governmental organizations that say, please look at this, what are you gonna do about air quality, what are you gonna do about traffic impacts? The only agency that usually does come is City of San Marcos, since they have so much within, common ground or common acreage with the Vallecitos Water District.
If I might add, if we're gonna do a specific project, for example, down in La Costa or somewhere, that's gonna impact a neighborhood, then the scoping session, the purpose of that scoping session is to let the residents in there, in their community center, for example, come in. We have our, recon or our experts and engineers come in, describe the project, give them an opportunity to have input on what's going on.
That sounds like a workshop.
Well, it is kind of, but I'm saying a master plan is different. You're not, it's really geared to more, other agencies. It's not something it's particularly a program, EIR or supplemental EIR, is really to try to get input from all of the responsible agencies. When you have a specific project that's gonna have a pipeline or a sewer line or a facility that's gonna impact the neighborhood, that's when the scoping session is more appropriate. You might have your homeowners association over at their, community center, and we've done that before. We've gone out when we've done work in some of the areas to make sure everybody, we get input from the public and everybody understands what's going on. This is slightly different in the sense that I don't want to say it's a boring master plan, but for the average person, they're going to say, oh, okay, you're going to build a bunch of facilities throughout the district. It's not something that lends itself for other than gentlemen like Mr. Hunsaker. It's like.
So are we hosting this at 6 p.m. then? Was that decided?
Well,
or-
if I may just say something before we answer that. I know the Finance Committee and the Governmental Legal Committee, we've tried to have our meetings at 4 o'clock. And we've tried to do that intentionally because at the general manager's request, we want to be careful with staff's time. And we try not to take that extra hour. Although the meetings might go to 5:30 or 6, it's 1 hour instead of 3 hours. So keeping that in mind and keeping what our attorney said, I would much prefer to see it happen at 5 or 4 or 3. And Mr. Hunsaker will make any one of those meetings.
And so will the attorney and anybody that's really interested.
Right,
John Q. Public,
right.
he's gonna wait for the pipeline
Yeah,
that's coming in his
and I
backyard.
apologize, I just didn't quite understand what the scoping meeting was. It still kind of sounds like a workshop in a way, but, so that's why I initially when I had heard that, I was like, oh, 6 is fine. I mean, we saw tonight too, that,
Did I?
A number of the
Oh, okay.
attendees that came in tonight, you know, they were kind of a late arriving crowd. They kind of showed up around 5:10, 5:15, 5:20, and we've had this talk. You know, we've had this conversation about, you know, is our time of our board meetings appropriate? And that might be something we may want to reevaluate as well in the future.
God, Mike, did you say that yourself?
No, to make it later, because folks obviously had.
later, not earlier.
Folks obviously had an issue tonight getting here on time. There was 4 or 5 folks in the audience that showed up well after 5 o'clock.
There's 3, but that's okay. One was the attorney.
Oh, yeah, man, the place was packed.
He should have gotten
The
busted. by
pace
that.
was packed.
So.
I want
anyway.
that to get back to his boss.
I don't
He
know,
almost missed it.
we were so close to move the scoping meeting, I figured, well, that's not, it doesn't sound like it's any more important than a
Well,
board meeting.
we-
So if it's important enough for a scoping meeting, it's important enough for a board meeting.
I was informed
In my
that I
opinion.
was the one that mentioned 6 o'clock, and now I'm concerned that because we did mention it at 6.
It wasn't you.
I think we
Well,
kinda have to
earlier
do
it
it.
was-
But the concern is that we projected 6 o'clock, and now if we change it.
I don't think we can change it tonight.
Oh, okay.
I just think that, you know, maybe that's something when, I was a little taken aback how quickly it was just one person spoke up and said it, and boom, it was done.
Actually, all I said was, is it possible we
Yeah.
do it at 6? I didn't, nobody said we were doing it at 6.
I don't think
Staff
it's that
simply said, of course it's possible.
big, I don't think
We
it's that
didn't make
big a deal
decision.
what time. I would just leave it to staff what
Who
they feel is
cares? Let
appropriate.
staff do
I think
whatever.
is, we already made the concession to have it be a 45-day process.
Yes, we
This meeting is only one step in a
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
It was gonna be a 30-day process, now it's a 45-day process. So to leave the meeting,
Do it whenever you
to
want.
conduct the meeting at 5 o'clock on the date noticed, I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
It'll be on the notice, the time, the
Yep.
date, time, so.
The notice will go out
So
tomorrow. I
the
believe.
majority agree with the general manager.
Okay.
All right. Seeing
I'll agree.
no other comments, we're adjourned.
Oh, my.